Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together.
Welcome back to another episode of the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm here with Luke Oswald and myself, Clay Bowers, and we're joined by JB Douglas of The Wild Grocery. JB, you were on last year when I wasn't on the podcast yet, so it doesn't count.
I was going to say, I was a little confused for a second. I was like, wait, what happened to Luke?
Welcome back for the first time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Mm-hmm. So, what you been up to, man? What's The Wild Grocery?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So, The Wild Grocery is, at present, it's a Substack that I run that is all about teaching people, foragers and non-foragers alike, to bring foraged foods into their regular cooking. So we do this through newsletters, through podcasts, through recipes and original food photography, all sorts of stuff. But it kind of hinges on this like weekly newsletter that I put out on Fridays that is doing like a little bit of a deep dive into a specific ingredient, and it has a recipe that is hopefully new and original and spark some inspiration in people.
I have been seeing some of your stuff because I became a subscriber when you first started doing it, and it looks amazing. It's really awesome stuff.
Yeah, thanks. I've really put a lot of effort into making sure that what I'm putting out is like directing resources to other foragers and to other writers and to other educators and other recipe developers, because I don't think there's enough sharing and centralized resources for a lot of these foraged foods. So I think that I think my role in this is to just give people more ways to cook and more things to get inspired by and more people to learn from. And hopefully it's very fun and the food looks delicious.
JB, it always looks delicious. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to get on right after this and subscribe to the Substack. I'm going to have to get involved in that community, especially because the only ones I've ever read are Clay's. But but I love everything you post on Instagram, the plating, the way you do it, the presentation, everything about it is just artistic. And not to mention the wonderful ingredients that are in it. And it makes me really want to sit down and eat one of your dishes one day because they're absolutely amazing looking.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I talk about this a lot, but it's really important to me to show foraged foods in all sorts of different types of food styling and food photos, talk about them like different types of language. I think foraged foods are for everybody and they belong in everybody's kitchen, whether you live in a cottage and make a 10-hour roast, or you are in the city and maybe can just sprinkle some wild mushroom powder on your ramen noodles at midnight. You know, I think that
That sounds
forage
good.
foods belong in all of those different contexts. And so I like to try to mix up how I am presenting them and talking about them and what they look like on the plate.
Yes, they look amazing. So I like that you do that. Don't you have an entire collection of dishes that you collect just to plate different things and present them?
I do. Yeah, that is a remnant of my past life. I used to work in props design and set design for theater. And so I have a bit of a penchant for weird plates and pottery and ceramics. I like to curate like what is in that photo. So sometimes it's like it may look like I've just grabbed a random plate and thrown it on a colored background, but trust and believe I have overthought it for several hours and looked through dozens of plates and tried to figure out which one would make the chicory look the best.
That's awesome.
I really love the color to all your stuff that you've been doing lately. It's very vibrant. Like reminds me a lot of Mexican housing or something, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that is again a really intentional color story. If there's one thing to know about me and my work, it's that I am an overthinker and will get into the design, the details of the design. And a lot of those colors were pulled from like, this might sound like a little bit of a stretch, but I was like really inspired by like 70s era like music, media, and interior, like late mid-century modern interiors, and those like how those vibrancies of colors were like integrated into everyday life. And so that's where that palette originally originates from, and then it kind of riffs out into all these different other bolder tones throughout the photography and some of the other food writing.
At first, I thought you were going to say Art Deco, and I was like, "Oh, that's like my least favorite styling."
Oh, I'm kind of right there with you. I like that. I don't want to be like super blasphemous, but like, yeah, that is Art Deco does not.
No,
those shapes do not speak to me. No.
My mom just redid her living room, and it's totally Art Deco with like the old like burnt orange color couch, and then it's got like the walnut table with like a real funky shape to it, and I'm just like,
okay, some of those things I'm not. Okay, some of those things I can kind of feel, but but yeah, everyone's got their own little art style things. That's what but again, like not to beat a dead horse, but I want to see the recipe developers that are exclusively shooting foraged foods in Art Deco, and cool. The ones that are like, I want to get to the place where we're like, who is that one like foraged food creator that like shoots everything like it's in a 90s hip hop style. Like I want to see that diversity brought to the wild food space, because they're here for everyone and they are delicious. You know?
Yeah. So you are trying to bring your own style then to plating and techniques. Do you ever see that going to like the hunting world? I mean, I know you're not a hunter, but do you think that sort of thing could ever go there?
I would love it if it did. Yeah. The fantasy for the wild grocery, and this is not a short-term fantasy, this is like a longer-term vision. But the fantasy for the wild grocery is that it will eventually expand into a standalone site that employs and works with other foraged food recipe developers, including wild game recipe developers, and like fishing recipe developers, people who can bring some of that freshness to those hunting and fishing spaces. Because like I think as you're implying, like those spaces also tend to be shot in a very similar style, and like that food, there's a kind of like one or two styles of cuisine that we think of when we think of like elk, right? It's like it's like those like dimly lit, like all like dark wood tones. There's like all that like that deep green. You know what I'm talking about.
It's like the backwoods mountainous, like the cabin,
exactly.
rustic approach to it. And then the other one is like the top tier, Michelin star restaurant that has
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I have no problem with either of those. I think they're both wonderful. There is zero shade to any creator that creates in that style. I think it is like impactful, and there's a reason that we see it so much. We love it. I just think that there's room for more. And I think that the people that, don't have access to hunting on the weekends that are maybe in urban spaces or don't have people that can teach them to hunt, I think that they can still participate in, trying and exploring wild foods and wild game by supporting other foragers. And we have to tell them that story through all sorts of different media.
Some of the foods that I plate, okay, they're phenomenal. The recipes that I cook, I'm not trying to brag, but they're really, really
Go
good.
for it.
But when I plate them, they look horrible. So what are your tips or advice to someone who wants to make it more aesthetically pleasing? Like, what are some things that you could do? I'm not ready to get my own style yet. I just want to make it look nice on a plate.
Yeah, great question. I actually, for a foraging meetup this year, I pitched a styling and recipe development course for wild foods, and it did not get picked up. But hopefully one day I'll be teaching some course about this.
You could do that at the Wild Food Summit when it happens. It is a thing.
Okay.
It got postponed though because of a few minor details, but it will happen. So when that happens, I'd love to have you there, and I would love to have you teach that course.
Oh my gosh, I would be delighted. Okay, the quick tips though. In person, you got to start with a good plate. I don't care. You don't need to have a whole new set, but have a clean plate that looks nice, that has good texture, that has a nice shape, that has a clean, flat color, something that you want to put food into and you will approach with some reverence. If it's that same Walmart plate that you've had kicking around your cabinet for 4 years, that's not going to inspire you to think through how you're placing it down, right? So I think what the vessel is of the food is super important. And again, that's my props background. That's tip number one. That second one is, when I think about what I'm cooking and developing a recipe, I am always thinking about color throughout that entire process. A lot of times I am choosing what ingredients to pull in and what ingredients to pair based on color and color theory, because I'm thinking about how it's going to pop at the end of the process, right? We eat with our eyes first. So it doesn't matter to me if it's Instagram ready, but it should naturally be Instagram ready, because the things that we want to eat, the things that look the best, are going to have bold colors and have freshness and have big texture. So I'm always thinking about color during that cooking process, and that will lead me to different techniques. So I'll say I'm going to take this extra step to blanch these greens because it's really important that they are super verdant on the plate when we go to eat them, right? Maybe it's easier to not do that, but if my goal is to inspire people to try these foods, then I think it's my goal. It's my job to make them look as exciting as possible. And so I'll be really specific in a recipe and say, hey, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'm taking the extra step to blanch these greens because it's going to look beautiful on the plate, because it's going to hold nutrients better. It's going to be easier to chew. So you take your pick. If you want to go for it, go for it. If you don't, you don't, right? So those are the kind of things that are in my head. And then I'll also say, if you're thinking about photos, you got to blast it with light, get as much natural light as you can, and just shoot what's called a flat lay, shoot top down, and call it a day. don't get fancy with the styling. Yeah. The telltale sign of a bad food photo is when you're shooting it from a 3/4 angle from just sitting down, and it's clearly the only light that's on it is your lamp light, and it's dark and yellow. Don't publish. Just give yourself big natural light and shoot it overhead and call it a day.
Yeah.
You can't shoot your food quartering away.
No.
You're not shooting a deer, Clay.
Yeah. JB, I got a challenge for you.
Tell me.
I think you should try to do like a really artistic, beautiful plating of food, but on a paper plate.
Oh, I
Oh.
love it. I'm so into it. I have a stack of differently shaped paper plates for that
Oh my
very
God.
reason.
Oh, that's funny.
So like
Actually, the I actually just I thought no, yeah, I did. I just published a mini digital cookbook on the Wild Grocery called the Snack Book, and this was all about it's 10 or more recipes that are like Super Bowl game day go to easy snacks that all include some sort of wild ingredient or staple in a forager's pantry. And on the cover for that, there are two sneaking in paper plates, but they are compostable and highly thought out.
Nice. Today I started what I'm going to call Wild Food Wednesdays for the rest of the year, and I'm trying to get people to go along just because it'd be a fun challenge to do. But my meals that I made today were so boring looking, and kind of just like man meals. That's just like what I've always called them. So like I had a lot of wild rice, hickory nut milk, maple syrup, venison, just kind of all piled together, not appetizing to the eyes at all. And
it sounds delicious.
Yeah, I mean it was very yummy, but and all wild, which is like where it goes along, it applies to the all wild food.
The only thing about right now is like everything has to be within your pantry. You know what I mean? Like it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot you're going to go out and get right now. Maybe some with the weird weather we've had, but like, can you imagine? I mean, it'd be so much easier in summertime or springtime when it's just everything's there. The ephemerals are out or whatever. Like then like your plates will look amazing. But right now it's like, yeah, you're using up your leftover hickory nuts and digging in the bottom of the wild rice bag.
Oh, I have so much wild rice.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say that there are two things that would like brighten and freshen it up that are probably out there right now. And can I give you some thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first is like, actually, you're a lot more north than I am, so maybe this is misguided. But at least where I am, even if it's snowing, I can still find stray patches. I can still find wild onions, and I can find stray patches of like catnip, chickweed, purple dead nettle that are doing, or garlic mustard that are always kind of popping up and doing something weird through the snow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really. I don't really have that. I mean, maybe I haven't looked hard enough, but like they look too discolored to me to use. Like that's my thing.
Yeah, again, I guess I'm a lot further south. I'm further south than you. I'm over in Northeast Ohio, but yeah, I feel like even if I get a lot of snow, some weird microclimate, some slope of this something or other, I always stumble upon something. It's usually, or even if it's in an urban space, there's usually a leaf somewhere or some sort of herb to throw on top of things and freshen things up. The second is that when I stock my pantry, I'm always thinking about like sources of acid that will bring me through the winter. So things like, I always like a Japanese knotweed vinegar that is like pink and lemony and bright, which feels like fresh citrus, and it will last forever and can just completely brighten up a dish. It's kind of like having sumac water, but like that sumac water can get a little, funny after a year in the freezer or the fridge, but some of those are like infused vinegars with like those bright spring flavors. Like I'll keep year round and have on hand. And the other thing is like pickle more things during like the spring through the fall, because like I would love to see like some pickled milkweed pods on top of that venison, or idea. Like some or even some like dehydrated wild flowers that can like just add some color on top. Maybe that's just for aesthetics, but those things for me like make that whole experience so much more inviting and welcoming.
So let's get into that, JB, because I'm super curious. Pickling a milkweed pod. So you're like boiling it and then taking it once it's boiled and then putting it in a brine and canning it? Is that like...
Yeah, you can usually like fast track it by just like boiling, like simmering the brine and then putting the pods into the brine as it's happening. I guess I can also plug a brand that's near you guys called Wild or at least further up. They're just over in Canada, called Wild Muskoka, and they sell jarred pickled milkweed pods, and they are delicious. They're really wonderful.
Okay.
Well, Luke is
yeah, I'm about the same area as you. Just
he's
just
west
to
of
the
you.
west.
Yeah, I'm in northern Michigan. He's in Illinois.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I got to. I'm a California kid. The Midwest geography is still. I just found out about Indiana recently. So.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah. So, what's the Wild Muskoka thing?
Oh, that's a they're. I don't want to misrepresent them in their work, but they have a whole series of seasonings and vinegars and shrubs and bitters that are amazing. They got great bitters that all include wild and foraged ingredients. I knew their work because they were a vendor on Foraged. I'm not sure if they're still selling on Foraged or if you can just buy it from their website directly. But either way, it's Wild Muskoka. Everything I've had of theirs has been wonderful. They have like a wild Zatar that has sumac and wild thyme in it. That's amazing. They've got those bitters will have like juniper and dandelion root in them. Everything has been top notch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to ask you about these vinegars and things you're making, because I have not gotten into the vinegars yet. I just started dipping the toe in the whole lacto fermenting thing. I tried it once a couple of years ago, and I didn't actually like measure or weigh. It was kind of just guesswork, and I totally ruined a whole bunch of stuff, and it was too salty, so nothing actually happened. I must have killed the lactobacillus too. So just kind of go into like how you get into a vinegar, because I'm super curious. Like, where does one even start?
Oh yeah, totally. My answer might be a little bit anticlimactic. So I don't make any of my own vinegars from scratch. I have like the Noma fermentation guide. I have eaten up all Pascal's wildcrafted vinegar content. Like, I love it. I love that people do it. That is not for me. I am not good at signing up for long-term projects. When something comes in from the field, I want to cook it that day, or I'm going to dehydrate it or throw it in my freezer, and I'm not going to think about it again.
Okay.
I pickle everything, not because I think everything's great to be pickled, but because I just like don't want to think about how to preserve it other than just throwing it into a jar.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to vinegars, I just infuse everything. If something is aromatic and interesting, I have like racks of infused vinegars. Some that are herby and spicy, some that are much more lighter or floral, some that are just about color, some that get used in like drinks and like shrubs. And then for like the ones that are more nicely crafted, I think like many people cannot recommend Lindera Farms enough. Their work is just top notch. They do like French style multi-year fermenting, and they're really thoughtful about flavors, and they capture like really robust and interesting and dynamic notes of all these wild ingredients into these high quality vinegars, and they are super affordable and very worth it.
Nice.
I have made a vinegar a couple times, apple cider vinegar, that didn't turn out that great. And I don't know if it was because I wasn't diluted to acidity, like a low enough acidity. But then a couple years ago, I also did make a plum vinegar.
Oh, how'd that go?
Yeah.
That one turned out pretty good. Mm-hmm.
So when you did the vinegar, like I know, like Pascal says, you could have like a wine or something with an alcohol, and then as long as it's under 4% alcohol or something like that, like it has to be rather low. But then like if you want to speed it up, just like set it out on the counter in the summertime and let a fruit fly get into it, and then it'll naturally start right then and there. But if you don't, then it's a way longer process. So I always found that interesting and just wanted to try and play with that, but just never have. I don't know. I get so wrapped up in so many other things that I just don't have the time to do it. So I like what was the name of the farm's place to get that?
Oh, Lindera Farms. Yeah.
So
and
this is
like what I gotta say, like this is what I like to be about. I think that there are enough foraging educators out there that you guys are doing amazing, incredible work. I just want to be the person that can help people find those right resources and
Yeah.
find the Lindera farms and find the wild Muskokas. Because that's like, so like that, the newsletter that I do for the Wild Grocery just is always like flooded with links of like, you want to find this flavor, you want to find juniper berries in the dead of winter, here are 5 links to purchase it, here's 5 strategies to find it, here's who to learn from if you want to find it yourself, and here are a bunch of recipes from a bunch of different types of creators talking about how they use it, and also here's some USDA facts and a weird thesis about them, you know.
Yeah.
I just love to show people like how much is already out there, and Lindera Farms is almost always on my Rex list.
Is that the one you see people making like cocktails with? Is like the Lindera Farms? I don't know. For a while there on
Probably.
social media, there was a big thing where there was a bunch of people that received bottles of something.
So that was the Golden Elixir, I think that you're thinking of. That was
Okay.
a collab with Lindera and Sola El Whaley, formerly of Bon Appetit, and now she has her own Substack called Hot Dish.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't remember what was in that, but I think there was something wild in that elixir.
I don't remember. I don't know. I just saw a bunch of wild food people utilizing it, but
Yeah. Yeah, Lindera has been a really great partner for supporting the foraging community because of the nature of their products.
So you recently had an article featuring juniper.
Mm-hmm.
I love the flavor of juniper. And in fact, I see it often on my walks around up here. There's we have the species Juniperus communis, which is like the lower kind of form, and I just eat them all the time when I mean, one or two. They're really tasty. It has been many years since I've actually went out and gathered a substantial amount to like dry and use as a spice. But tell us why we should use juniper.
Oh my gosh, juniper. Yeah, get ready. No, juniper to me is for sure one of the most underutilized spices in North American kitchens. I don't understand why it is not more common outside of just like home gin infusions. Like it's fruity, it's woody, it's botanical, it's pungent. It can be like spicy, it can be like super citrusy. I think I described the flavor as like citrus peels, pine needles, and a well-toasted sunflower seed. And
Fair.
Who doesn't want that in their cooking? I find it to be such a versatile ingredient in both sweet and savory applications, which is, can be kind of rare, especially with how we think about spices in the kitchen these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I love using it in places where I would normally use cardamom or like an allspice or some sort of other warming spice. Not because it's the same flavor, but because it tends to like work in that space. Because there's something that is a lot of times those cardamom allspicey spices are paired with like a lot of fat and cream or like silky textures, things like kheer or rice puddings, or like bread puddings, or other like a pavlova or a clafouti, like all these other like creamy desserts. And the pop of something that is a little bit warm and spicy, but has those like boom, big botanical floral moments, to me is very satisfying. So I love putting those in like baking those into sweet desserts. And on the savory side, they make such a classic, beautiful flavoring for, small game, for other like deep. I put it in the base of like curries and chilies and stews a lot, not in a high proportion, but just to give that roundness of flavor, that depth of flavor. And they have a really cool cultural history to many different North American cultures. And I think there's no reason to not bring them into your kitchen because A, they're easy to find yourself. Mm-hmm. B, if you can't find them yourself, they're really easy to find from other foragers. Other foragers can show you where they are. You can take a class. You can purchase from foragers on forage.com or from other, individual businesses that sell them. And then also you can often find them in the grocery store. And these are not like big like monocropped juniper farms that are like tearing up the soil. These are often hand gathered and, purchased by the pound. I can't speak for the ethical practices of every single juniper like spice brand out there, but generally speaking, you can find ways to bring juniper into your cooking pretty easily, and then hopefully one day find it for yourself.
So don't juniper berries take like 2 years to develop or something like that, or maybe even longer?
Yeah, the flavor will change over the course of like how long they've been sitting on the tree. So this was actually very interesting to me, coming from like on the East Coast, coastal Massachusetts, and then trying it here, and then seeing some in Minnesota, and then I got some with like Orion out in Colorado, and seeing how different they are, because there's like different climates that both cling to the tree differently in those different spots. So both the species difference and then the climactic differences that change how well those little berries hold on. That flavor can change a lot. So it's like many things when you're foraging, it's best to taste and see if it's like to your palate, and then continue harvesting more.
Yeah. Now I'm picturing like venison, like a backstrap, like cut into medallions, and then like dried and cracked juniper berries on top. It seems like.
I love that. I'm very into like, I want the raw juniper at the very end.
Yeah.
I will say some people have given me feedback that when the juniper is crushed on something at the end, it's a little like stick in your teeth like popcorn is.
Oh, I want that in like big chunks of like sea salt. You know what I mean? Like flakes
I'm into it.
on there. Yeah.
Serve it to me. Don't serve it to people that don't like popcorn kernels in their teeth.
JB, there's something that I really admire about you, and that's that you are not a meat eater, and yet you have been talking this entire time without any judgment about meat eating, and in fact, encouraging people to do, like certain things like putting wild juniper on their small game. So how are you like that? You seem like an aberration in our society today. You should be like judging both of us for eating meat.
Why aren't you judgy?
No, this is, maybe I've become too radicalized from my like sustainable food systems masters, but this is something that I'm very passionate about. Food access and food system change. Those can be kind of academic words. But I'm happy to like explain in further detail as it makes sense. But generally speaking, like when we're talking about building a more sustainable food system, when we're talking about making more healthy food options accessible to people, when we're talking about making a food system that protects laborers and protects the land and does good by the earth, all these things, recommendations don't say eat no meat. Like that is not often, for many cultures, that is not socially or culturally sustainable. It's not nutritionally sustainable for some people. It's not like an economically sustainable model to just like completely shift away from that immediately. The recommendations don't say eat no meat. What the recommendations say, but for like climate health, for personal health, for social health, for community health, for all these things, recommendations just say to eat a lot of plants and eat like a wide diversity of plants, right? So I'm an advocate for eating a plant-rich diet. I think that there are plant diets that are healthy, plant diets that are not healthy. There are animal diets that are healthy. There are animal diets that are not healthy. And I'm not going to lie, I will always like encourage people to eat more plants, to eat a wider diversity of plants, because I think that's really important for our long-term health and the health of our planet. But I don't think there's any function or value in shaming people for how they currently eat, because there's a million reasons why people eat what they eat. There's like, it's like so complex. There's like, you can like list out, like there are papers, there's like at least like 150 factors into like you choosing why you ate, conscious and subconscious. And it just doesn't help anyone to place value judgments or shame certain eating patterns in service of others. I just want people to eat what makes them feel good, and what keeps our planet here longer, and that happens to be plants. But
and animals, unfortunately, though, and animals. As long
Yeah.
as it's that the thing is factory farms are no good for anybody. I mean, anything that's so commercialized, that's not good for anybody. But utilizing the landscape and managing, which we have to, look at that factor as well. Managing the resources includes managing the animals to a herd that can actually sustain, the different resources that they're utilizing anyway, so that they don't bring something to the verge of extinction or destruction as well. That has to be looked at. And I'm not, trying to sway you one way or another. Everybody has their opinions, but that's just that's science, right? And you can't deny the science that managing resources for that. Now, am I going to go out and buy meat at the grocery store? No, not really. I haven't done that in years. I'm either going to get it from a local farmer that I know raises it, or I'm going to get it, and that's my choices.
Yeah.
That's which plants are a big part of that. Unfortunately, most of mine are still raised on a commercial scale, which I don't really agree with that either. So,
this is what you just described is like a beautiful reflection of how everyone's eating. Like some people, like some amount of the eating that you do will probably align with your values, and amount of the eating that you do won't align with your values because of what you have access to, what you can afford, what is around you geographically, like all of these different things, like what is communicated to you, how you were influenced to purchase something. And so the task for all of us, right, no matter how we're eating, is to just align our values with with our actions, right? And that's why I care. Like, that's not to bring it back to this, but like that's what the Wild Grocery is really about. Like, it's a little bit wolf in sheep's clothing in that a big part of the reason I did this was because I was like, I have found a lot of success and beauty in incorporating wild foods into my diet because it brings in a much wider diversity of plants and textures and flavors, and it's like really fun, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to show more and more people the way that wild foods can be part of a sustainable diet, both personally and at the community level.
You want to succeed, you want to fish, you want to be one of the greatest.
Tune in to West Marine's Life on the Water, presented by Costa Custom Boats, every Saturday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
So bringing it back to a comment you made earlier, and something that I love to do is blanching greens. Do you lose a lot of nutrition when you blanch greens? I mean, I have my own, knowledge on this issue here, but I want to know what you think about that.
Yeah, this is a great question. I'll start by saying that I'm not a nutritionist, but I do have like thoughts on this from a culinary perspective. And I think that just to start, a great resource for this is Samin Nosrat's Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, where she talks about this process. When you blanch vegetables, the water needs to be heavily salted. And that's not just because of like trying to season it, although that is a huge part of it, right? If it's going to that water for 30 to 60 seconds, it needs to be heavily salted so that it has time, it can like absorb enough salt. But part of that salting process is also to keep the nutritional value of the vegetable. When the water is unsalted, you'll have a lot more leaching happening because of, and this is where I'm not a nutritionist or a food scientist, because of science. There's something about the way that the nutrition
no, that makes total
cell
sense.
walls, right?
Yeah, because it's like almost like osmosis, right? It's drawing something out versus if the water is already saturated, then you don't saturate it or actually extract from your vegetable that you're blanching. That makes total sense.
Exactly. So, and I referenced that Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat book because she's got a whole like chapter and sections and diagrams about how this functions. But yeah, that heavily salting that is going to be helpful for nutrition, for flavor, for color, and for texture. Like it'll maintain that snap better when it comes out. And when it comes out of that boiling water, when it's turned that bright green, dump it straight into ice water. Make sure that you like halt that cooking where it is, that you maintain whatever, so it doesn't like, continue to cook as it's out of the heat.
I absolutely loved blanched greens. They're some of my favorite ways to eat greens. They could be stinging nettle is a great one to do too, because like stinging nettle is like so strong if you don't blanch it. Like if you just saute it, it's like overpowering sometimes.
Oh, I like it.
But
like that.
blanching really removes some of that flavor and makes that a lot more accessible to most palates.
I like it when you cut it on your cutting board and then it oxidizes and you see like the black marks or the gray marks on the cutting board from cutting the metals.
Yeah.
So what greens are you looking forward to, or what like how is your foraging season going to begin this year? You and Luke both probably have similar patterns going on. Do either of you have snow? I got snow today.
We did not. I did not get snow.
No, I did. I had a big thunderstorm last night, though.
Crazy thunderstorm, right?
Yeah, I had a crazy thunderstorm last night. But I had a little bit of a sneak preview of the spring season because I was just in California for about a week. Last week, 2 weeks ago. Who knows what time it is anymore? And I was like, and there it is like the chickweed and the miner's lettuce is shin high. Like it felt so magical. There were like mushrooms popping up everywhere. I really felt like I was in a whole other world. And now I am back in Cleveland.
Where in California were you?
Sacramento.
Oh, in Sacramento, cool.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. I like the earliest foraging I can remember was the wild fennel and invasive Himalayan blackberry that were like all along the river where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so I love going back there and just getting some of those flavors back in me. But here in Cleveland, the first things that I'm usually looking for are, it's like the bigger garlic mustard flush, obviously. But the thing that really speaks to me is the start of the Eastern Redbuds, which happens a little bit later, but I love an Eastern Redbud flower, and that like feels like quintessential spring for me.
So is an Eastern Redbud something that you're doing specifically for color pop, or is that a flavor thing too? Because
both.
Because I'm going to be honest with you, I've been foraging for somewhere around 18 years or something right now, and I largely ignore all the flowers.
Really?
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, like everybody's throwing violets on their salad and everything. Maybe I should start doing it though. I don't know.
It feels so special to me because it's flavors you don't get other times of the year or from the grocery store, really. It's textures you don't get other times of the year or from the grocery store, really. And it like often is like it does very little to damage, or it does no damage to the plant or like the success of the plant oftentimes. So it is like, it feels like a guilt-free color and nutrients and flavors. I also just like happen to love grassy and floral botanical flavors. And I know that's not for everybody. Yeah. Like if somebody says something tastes like soap, I'm like, it tastes like soap?
Sign me up. You got your mouth washed out as a kid an awful lot, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Sacramento, that's funny. I told you this last summer when I met you in person, but my two older kids, their mother is from Sacramento. So so I've been out there. I stayed out there for like a month. I don't know, must have been 15 years ago. Yes, Sacramento's pretty cool, but I heard that she told me that the population only boomed there when air conditioning came into being.
That's probably true.
Yeah, because it's so hot.
Yeah, it can be very hot there. I have a really skewed sense of Sacramento now because pandemic, fires, and I only go back like maybe once a year, once every other year, and it's always in a different season. So sometimes I go back and I'm like, this state is decimated, everything is burned, and nothing is. And last week I went back there and I was like, this is heaven. Why are we not all living here? It is so green and beautiful and verdant. There are sheeps on all of and peacocks on all of the hills. It was like,
Wow.
it felt so special and beautiful. So I have a very skewed sense of like what Sacramento works like these days.
Yeah. I think it's really really pretty up there. You know, when I was there, I just couldn't believe all the fig trees and the all the citrus, and I climbed must have been like a 2-story orange tree when I was there and harvested like an entire backpack full of oranges.
I love
Nice.
it. I've never harvested any feral citrus there, and it's like one of my bucket list items. But lots of feral olives and feral figs.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There's just like fruit everywhere. It's
Yeah.
like because here we have pawpaws here, but it's like and like persimmons, which are genuinely two of my favorite fruits of all time. But it's not like they're not just like constantly everywhere. Like you go to the pawpaw patch and you're like, there are 600 trees here and not one of them has fruit on them.
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? How that works. Like, or you'll even go in like the springtime and you'll see all the flowers on all the pawpaws and then none of them fruit. It's like, how does this even happen? But I mean, if they're shaded or whatever, there's a lot of factors there. But it sucks.
Last year was so devastating because we had that late frost and it really.
Yes.
I was like all of my wild patches. I was so determined for 2023, and I was like, dang.
I feel like that's going to be the same story this year. How it got so warm, like it just seems like that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much always is.
So JB, you went to the Pawpaw festival last year, right?
Yeah, I went 2 years running. In 2021, I went with Forage because we sponsored, and then this last year I just went as an attendee.
What's
Okay.
Pawpaw Festival? What is this?
Luke, you don't know?
I don't. I swear I live under a rock, and unless somebody tells me, "Hey, man, you got to check this out," I have no idea. There's
Okay,
so
look,
many
look.
things I don't even know about. I never even knew what a Substack was until Clay started one. So
Okay, well, Luke, hey man, you gotta check this out. The Pawpaw Festival happens in Athens, Ohio, so it's southeast, and it's been going on for 20. I think this last year was the 25th
Okay.
year, or something, give or take. They've had some on and off years, but yeah, it's a huge festival. Like, I think estimates are between like 10 and 18,000 people
Holy
through
cow.
over the course of the weekend. It really depends on like the year and the weather and stuff. But big festival, so many artists, so many like sustainability brands and conservation districts and researchers and stuff. Pawpaw growers. You can buy pawpaw trees. You can buy pawpaws by the pound. You can get desserts. All the food vendors all have like pawpaw dishes served as part of the weekend. There's so much beer and so much pawpaw beer, a lot of pawpaw beer. There's live music all weekend. It is a very fun time. It's like Friday to Sunday, and it is popping. It is a very fun festival.
Really, I never
Highly
knew about
recommend.
these things.
In your
yeah.
in your studies of pawpaws, JB, have you come across the idea that some pawpaw growers have that while a native pawpaw will grow in like a floodplain,
Mm-hmm.
the best place for them to grow is high and dry?
Yeah, a lot of research shows that. I guess it depends on what you mean by like best place for them to grow. If your goal is high volume of large, heavy fruit, then yeah, it is like open sun and like well-drained soil, from what I understand. There's a buddy of mine here, Justin Husher, has like a big acre that he's setting up. I think he's set up to have, I think, the largest pawpaw farm in the country, if I'm not mistaken, in the next few years. Yeah, we got a lot. Pawpaw is the state fruit of Ohio. We got the pawpaw farms. There's lots of good farms around here, but you'll see them all, high and dry.
That's what I'm going to do this year. I've got a whole bag of seeds I collected, so I'm going to take the wild pawpaws that I took and kept the seeds, and I'm going to plant them high and dry within probably the next week or two here if it warms up again.
Well,
Nice.
I just can't seem to grasp like how a plant would purposely grow in an environment and desire to grow in an environment in which it doesn't do very well. You know?
Well, yeah, I guess it depends again what you mean by doesn't do very well, because like
So like same thing. You guys said I teach an annual class in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's the northern extent of pawpaws, right? The
Mhm.
entire understory of the forest where I teach is all pawpaws.
Mhm.
But you see flowers everywhere, and then I'll go back in the fall,
Yep.
and there's never a pawpaw to be found.
Because it
It's
can proliferate itself by using
Yeah.
yeah. So
yeah.
it runs by underground rhizome. I
Yeah.
got
Right.
that. So it doesn't need seed production. But it's kind of an
But it won't
interesting.
produce fruit unless it's pollinated by a different one that is like genetically disparate enough.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it has to be like the certain distance. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But I guess it's like for us, I guess volume and size of fruit is like super important. But like maybe if it's proliferating enough rhizomatically and getting by with a lower volume of fruit, then like if the efficiency level is there, then I guess it wouldn't. There's
Yeah.
not really a
Right. It doesn't need to
evolutionary
compete enough to like put itself ahead of something else. It just wants to
Yeah.
exist, which
Yeah.
kind of like me.
Yeah.
Nice. JB, tell us about AI.
Oh God.
I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to chat about this for a little second. I'm not going to tip my hands too much, but yeah, I have as part of Wild Grocery, most of what I'm doing is public facing for like mostly non-foragers or like people that are exploring wild foods for the first time. But I also try to include some articles about like foraging culture,
Mhm.
some resources to more advanced, more heady work, just in case like people are interested in learning more. And so something I've been working on for the past month or so is a larger article about this phenomenon of AI written foraging texts.
Mhm.
And I'm using the word phenomenon because I think it's like feels unique within our community that that this happened and is happening. But I think it's happening across all sorts of industries and niches and communities. But basically, I set out to investigate like in August to like September, October of 2023. There was this big flurry of news articles from like international organizations, even, and like all sorts of posts from big social influencers. Everyone was talking about, oh my gosh, we're so scared that we're spotting these foraging texts and harvest identification texts that are clearly written by fake authors, like AI, like the authors' bios are generated by ChatGPT, the photos are generated by AI, the content of the books are like very low quality and have like typos or mistakes or don't make any sense. And I think the dominant concern was like, what if there's like misinformation and this is like and somebody gets poisoned or somebody like has some sort of bad experience of the foraging community through this book. But then all the news stories kind of like fizzled off in the middle of the fall, and it felt like nothing that much happened. So in January, I was like, I want to know if people did get poisoned from these books. I want to know like how did Amazon claim to like address things and say that ChatGPT is required to be listed as a co-author on AI written books, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Mhm.
And I was like, who's behind this? What's going on? Is this actually taking away sales from Sam and other like writers? Is it not? I just had all these questions. So I've been looking into that for the past month. I've been conducting a lot of interviews. And hopefully I'll have a larger article and like a little podcast mini series about that work soon.
Nice.
But generally speaking, yeah, it's really interesting. I encourage people to look out for that article. But also in the meantime, I encourage you to just take a peek at Amazon and just type in intro to foraging or beginning foraging and see what comes up. And I think you might be surprised by what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This brings me to another thought that I'm having just now that I haven't thought about at all. And that's that has this happened in the hunting world yet, Luke, that you know of? Is there any like hunting AI books?
Honestly, I'm sure there probably is, but there's so many people that just randomly write books anyway that are self-proclaimed experts. That what does it really matter? I mean, I met a guy one time at an archery range that's shooting his bow, and whether or not he shot better than me or not, that's not like the thing here. But this guy's talking about all these tips.
AI?
No, he wasn't AI, but I'm just saying, like, you met him, you wouldn't think he was some expert that's killed all these big deer, and most people are like really eager to show you all these pictures and everything, but his eagerness was to tell me that he was a 4-time published author. And I was like, oh yeah, like, who's your publisher or whatever? And he's like, oh, well, I'm self-published. Well, I don't know. You never quite know, if it's a self-published person, well, is he really an expert? Is he something? And you'd have to actually go out and get his book and read it to see if he's full of crap or not, or see his trophy wall at home. So you never really know. And especially if somebody doesn't even have social media that, like, you can actually somewhat validate that. Then how do you know he's an expert? Or maybe he is an expert and doesn't have social media because he doesn't care about that. This world's so crazy these days, you really don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's what I was interested in exploring is, like, okay, let's say our concern is that there's misinformation. Okay, then what if the AI written book has no misinformation in it, and it is all accurate? Like, well, it's not going to be as good or as thoughtful as a person, as like somebody that's writing it and is an expert. Like, okay, what if that language model evolves and it is like well written and it feels like it has heart and resonates with people? They're like, is that a problem? And most people are still saying, like, yes, I don't want that. I don't like that. And I think it's our job as a community to start articulating why that still feels like a problem and what is the actual threat that is there within our community, and what does it actually do in effect long term to, like, have resources going towards tech bros that are using ChatGPT versus resources that are going towards individual foragers, because ChatGPT and AI are not going anywhere.
No.
We're going to continue to see more and more of it. And so I think it is our job to be thinking really critically and feeling really critically right now, to understand how we're going to address this in the future. Like, where are the lines that we're drawing, and what do we care about, and what is the most important actions that we can take now to mitigate any threats in the future.
Yeah, I find it funny, the artwork that it does right now, though. It's very abstract almost.
Yeah.
I really think that there are benefits to AI, and I found it funny that Sam has such a strong opinion against AI in general. He's just, like, broadly speaking, he just thinks it's the worst thing ever, and that there's he made the claim on Facebook that there's no application at all for ChatGPT that's good, and I just completely disagree with that. Like, I do think that it's terrible for plagiarism. That's horrible. But using a large language model to help doctors or let people know if they have cancer, based on their symptoms, like, those are good things in my mind.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to tip my cards too much. Like, I would say I have a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts on the subject right now.
We'll just have to tune in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things. Yeah.
You don't have to tell us any of it, JB. Well, we want to know it in your article when it comes out, and we want the full story then. We don't need to know anything more now. Here's what I'm going to say, though.
Cool.
There is some scary, scary stuff that's happening with AI. And honestly, I think eventually it will be the downfall of civilization. Maybe I'm, like, too extreme in my thoughts there, but I'm maybe not within, like, the next 50 to 100 years, but, like, if it actually truly does have self-awareness and self-preservation, we will be in trouble. Especially if it figures out a way to network itself without all other intelligence too. That's crazy.
Just to I'll say one thing that kind of, like, maybe bridges the thoughts between both of you, which is that, like, broadly speaking, I am not scared of technology or AI when used as a tool.
Mhm.
I am very cautious and hesitant when it is used as replacement, especially when it is replacing the few things left in this world that make us feel human, which are
Mhm.
things like foraging and eating and writing and doing creative work. I'm like, if you're gonna advance tech, I would much rather have it do my taxes and cancel gym memberships than write recipes and generate photos of food. So,
What if there was AI actors?
Yeah.
do you know about this?
No, is there?
Well,
This is a thing now.
This was part of the
The
strike.
actor strike. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Wait,
was
the what?
related to actor strike because they were looking to, like, yeah,
Really?
build. It was related. It's not the only thing. It was, like, related to the conversation because, like, the idea is that, like, they would take the likeness and then license that out, and then production companies could just use that actor.
Which they
to-
pretty much did that, like with Star Wars movies with
Mark Hamill.
no, the what's her name, the one that died. Princess Leia.
Oh, Princess Leia. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Dolly Parton.
Carrie Hamill.
No,
Carrie Fisher. Sorry.
Gary Fisher.
Carrie
Oh,
Fisher.
wow, that
Mark
was.
Hamill, Carrie Fisher.
I almost
Yeah.
had a stroke. That was
Yeah,
scary.
it's so bad. But yeah, Carrie Fisher. Didn't they do that with her and utilized her likeness with AI in order to do that? I mean, it's possible. Yeah. Craziness.
Yeah.
You won't even know
It is.
there will be a time though where you won't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
That's what's insane to me.
Okay, well, I don't. Okay, not to be a doomsday person, but I think it's already here, and we are. I think we are all. No, I don't think. We are all already interacting with things that we don't realize are bots.
Correct. I believe that. Yeah. Well, that's like Michael Baker sent me something the other day, and I was like, "What? This is ridiculous. This doesn't even make any sense." And maybe I wasn't watching it. I think I was distracted, like, half-heartedly watching, like going through, how people, like, you'll just mindlessly scroll. I sent Clay something today that, like, because he tells me when I get on there, I just like scroll through and send out a bunch of reels real quick on Instagram to like a million of them in like a 20-minute period. But anyway, he sent me one, and I get like mindless and just kind of go through them and looking through them, and I didn't really pay attention, but I was like, oh, that's kind of weird and dumb. And then I messaged him and said something. He goes, bro, it's AI. It's funny. Like, they created it with AI. And I was like, I can't live in a world like this anymore.
Yeah.
And then I said something like, maybe the old man in a shack with a typewriter wasn't that far off from, just jokingly, of course, but like,
No, but
but like realistically, I mean, if this was the stuff he talked about, like, we're living it.
Yeah.
it gives whole new meaning to go outside and touch grass, and
Right?
it really makes me feel like when I talk about foraging, I'm like, no, this is urgent. Like, you need to go outside and eat some chickweed. Trust me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, just getting outside in general. In my day-to-day life, I'm a self-employed carpenter, gardener, jack of all trades kind of guy, and I work at a lot of people's houses, and I've been shocked. I've been shocked at how many people will stay inside their home for the entire day and not even walk outside. And I will be like, holy cow, this is like mind blowing. I'm outside 365 days a year, pretty much. I will
at least
go out,
for some period of time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
go on a walk or whatever, so not going outside is totally foreign concept to me.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, like, not foreign to me because I, work remotely, go to school remotely, and there are some days that, like, my getting through the day means that I am glued to the laptop all day.
Dang.
And it is, I think for a lot of us, I think that we know that is a challenge, but it makes the moments I get to go outside much more intentional and much sweeter. And I am really looking forward to being through my master's and having so many more hours back in my life
Yeah.
that are not looking at a screen.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I would just go crazy. I think like I just have that drive in my bones, like if I were stuck inside sick, I would be like, okay, I'm going to walk outside for 10 minutes
I
Mm.
do that. I feel like it makes me feel so much better if I am sick and you just get outside and get some fresh air and maybe even
Yeah.
kick those shoes off for a minute and touch that grass. Really
Yeah.
makes a difference.
But JB, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I love all your new work. How can people follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the socials at jbdouglas.food, or you can follow at Wild Grocery. Those will all take you to my Substack, or you can just go straight there. Go to thewildgrocery.com. Nope, sorry, it is www.thewildgrocery.com. You have to put the wwws in the beginning. I don't know how URLs work like that, but you have to put the www at the beginning of that. But thewildgrocery.com.
Wow.
Nice.
And how is your Substack going? Just as a quick note, is it you got a lot of subscribers?
So far, so great. Yeah.
Nice.
Just so everyone knows, like, it is like the newsletter is free, and that is like where most of the content is, most of the inspiration. The original recipes are behind a paywall, and that is because it is not sustainable for me to like do the entire recipe development process and cook and shoot and do all of that work for free. But I'm happy to put those newsletters together and direct resources to all sorts of wonderful people. But yeah, it's been going well so far. I'm a little slow on social these days because I've been starting a new job and traveling to California. But just you wait. Don't count me out of the Reels game. There's going to be a lot of videos back in the feed lately.
I have taken a huge hiatus from social media, and to be honest, I don't miss it. I know it hurts me and affects me. And Clay rides me a lot about it to try and do more, but I don't feel it right now. It makes me feel icky, and sometimes I'll get on for like 20 minutes, mindlessly scroll, try and see what everybody's up to, if I can catch up on everybody, maybe do like a quick post on whatever, and then I just get off of it. I don't know.
Yeah, again, tech as tool, not as replacement. Like let it serve you as it needs to serve you, and then let it go.
Yeah.
Don't let it replace parts of your life.
Luke, if you didn't send me 400 reels a day,
that's all within like a half hour. I'm serious, Clay. And I get on 10 minutes later because you tell me you posted something. I get on like a 10-minute. I hyper scroll. I do.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I don't.
Yeah.
My actually my screen time is down dramatically.
Yeah.
Brag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. Like I'm the opposite. Like I never scroll.
So you don't look. That's why you're not liking my stuff, Clay.
Yeah, I don't. I'll like look at the top 2 or 3 posts, and then I post something, and I'm like, cool. Hope people comment on this thing, and then I just don't look at anybody else's.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Real nice. I try and give the love, Clay.
Yeah, I do too. But anyway, yeah. Sorry to keep you here, JB. We would love to have you back on in the future once you're done with your masters and all that stuff. So.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it.
All right. Groovy, man.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. See you next time.
See ya.